This will be a good chance for me to take a bathroom break.
As a property owner,
Or do I need to hear this, Tim?
I think you need to hear this. Because you are my representative. I'm going to start out by thanking our county attorney for taking this. This was brought up again in May of this year to have this resolved. And we've been waiting on the table, if you will, for things to happen. Here back in, I'm going to go back a ways, give you a little bit of history. And Mr. Swanson brought that forward in 1912, 1913. The original easement on the road was brought forward and established to the White Horse Ranch, which will go clear up to the base of the mountain. This was before any other subdivisions, and in 1980-ish, another prescriptive easement, if you will, was established across the Foster property to maintain the original intent of that White Horse Ranch easement. Because of the subdivision process that was in place. In 1982, the Elkhorn subdivision was brought forward, and I will say the assumed access to the subdivision, because this was prior to subdivision laws that required easements to be recorded in the plat approval. And so as that went forward, everybody was moving forward as good neighbors. We didn't have no fences, but we were still good neighbors. In 2004, the county was petitioned, 2003, 2002, somewhere in that range. The county was petitioned to take over the road. The original petition was then tabled because of some of the same questions that Mr. Swanson brought up as far as the property and an initial non-agreeing property owner in the whole stretch of the road. In that process, Mr. Steve McCullough, Elaine Mann, and James Hone were the commissioners. And at the time that all took place, it was assumed that the petition that was done to change the highway, which we have now between Townsend and Helena, was to move over from Section 3, where it's at currently, past the Nagels, to the line between Section 2 and Section 3. From there, the petition was to follow that section line like most highways and right-of-ways do. So, it was done, it was petitioned, it was accepted to look at, and at the time, Schauber Surveying, which was the county surveyor on record, went through, did historical record checks, and found that everything went right forward, right to the final drop of the gavel to accept the new change, and no road was ever changed, and we have proof today because the highway's still in the same place. So, therefore, that original county road or establishment of moving the county road never was adopted, and therefore stays where it's at, which has been later again adopted as the highway. In that process, another petition was brought forward in order to try and get the county to help the landowners in the area to maintain the road. And we all agreed that, that would be a pretty good thing. I was on board with that as a landowner that owns all of the land that this crosses on Section 2. So what I did was I went ahead, my wife and I, we signed the petition, and we said, yeah, let's move forward with this. And I even came to John Quinn, who was county attorney at the time, and said, let's do this right. Let's follow the right process, and I will donate my taxable land that is underneath this process to make this happen. And for some reason, the petition got changed. Parts of it were blacked out, parts of it was altered, and then the next thing I knew, I was being told that I had to pay the county an encroachment fee and was in violation if I didn't, and had to buy a culvert. And I will share this with you for your reference, because again, you folks weren't here. There's a couple of pictures of my access to my private property. On my private property was destroyed by the county. The road was completely tore up. Prior to that, it was all maintained by private individuals. In fact, Ron Campbell used his own expenses, which is another landowner on this easement, that brought forward, working at the lime plant, the ability to gravel the road and to maintain it. The county came in, tore the road from stem to stern, getting ready to build a new foundation and bring it to standards. At that time, again, I got a letter from the county commissioners. It says, "Dear Mr. Ravndal, here is the information you requested, April 18, 2004. Our actions are in response to the petition received by landowners represented by Terry Lewis, who is representing the Elkhorn subdivision and working on trying to get this taken over by the county." The letter continues on, says, "Our investigation resulted in finding that there was evidence to declare White Horse Road a public road and the county could maintain it. We required the landowners to comply with the county policy of installing culverts and obtaining approach permits. We also went further step, providing culverts at county cost to facilitate timely completion of the work. Since you have declined to participate in the process, we have no option but to treat your approaches as unauthorized encroachments on the county right-of-way." And again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that was never established that that was a county road, and in fact, County Attorney Mr. Flynn came into the county commission meeting and declared, Ann was there taking minutes at the time, I think still, and at the time came in and declared that that was a private road and that there would need to be some processes followed in order for the county to actually take control of the road and do the maintenance. That never happened because the commissioners at that time, from that point, said, "Well, we don't want to go there." It was tabled. And from that point, I will say that it went to bed. And this is again, 2004, 2005 era.
Mr. Chairman, we have on our agenda that Corey was gonna give us the history and a decision on White Horse Road. We have had that. We are past our agenda now by an extreme amount. We still have 3 subjects, lunch, and then a closed door. I appreciate Tim adding some public comment, but it is quite lengthy and we are quite a ways behind. And it's off the agenda.
All right, I'm gonna button up here, Mr. Chairman, with that said by Commissioner Obert. Number 1, I'm gonna go ahead and again, I thank Mr. Swanson for going through and completing his work. He's repeated, as you can see here. Here's his work. Here's the file that we've had on the table since 2000, or maybe even going back to the 1912. What's going on right now, Mr. Chairman, is we have several of the landowners have never been notified of these proceedings for them to have an opportunity to talk about their own private property and their property rights. It's been stated that the public access has been in question now, and I triggered that, Mr. Chairman, and that has not been brought up by Mr. Swanson, with the exception of that, there's question there. And that comes in, I got this response in asking the United States Department of Interior Bureau of Land Management what was their easement and what do they have to show for it. I got this letter from Mr. Scott Height, which is the field manager of BLM, back in, I'm sorry the date isn't on this, it was on the envelope, but this was back here last year. This letter is a response to inquiry regarding the status of public access on White Horse Road in Broadwater County and the construction of a new Bureau of Land Management trailhead. That turned into a big parking lot last year. That's why I raised this question. There was campers and everything up there. It was just a madhouse. So I was wondering what was going on as a landowner crossing my property. In 2015, BLM completed a travel management plan for the Iron Aspen acquisition, which includes land on the White Horse Road area. Prior to the completion of this process, the status of access on White Horse Road with several Broadwater County officials, and were told that it is a public access route. Besides designating travel routes in the area, TMP also approved construction of a new trailhead with the following features. For installation of these features, BLM has been successful in developing partnerships with several entities, which has greatly reduced the cost of this project. Graymont, Indian Creek Mine donated. Again, we asked, okay, show us your writing. What do you have in writing? And nothing has ever been produced to this day, Mr. Chairman. So I have been on board. I made a statement here a few minutes ago that I'm more than willing to donate my property to make this happen and be done with it. As long as the county follows the proper process because I think that's the push by Terry Lewis and the folks that live west of me, is to get this maintained and controlled by the county. I have been maintaining that road for the last 15 years, personally, at my expense. What I would like to see to happen with the county right here is to do what Mr. Swanson recommended, which is to do it the right way, follow the right process, and do not ignore, and I will emphasize, do not ignore the private property rights that are in question here. And I was always on board, but if those property rights are in jeopardy, I will say right here, right now, I will join Nagels and I will fight this. Because my property rights need to be protected here as well as anywhere else in the county and anywhere else in the country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, where are you saying that your property rights are in jeopardy? How are they in jeopardy?
I'm gonna say it's not necessarily my property rights, but if Nagel's property rights are violated, that's an individual property right that is being called into question.
But how are they being?
And they need to go through a process, and that's what the whole thing I'm asking for, Mr. Swanson, is to go through the legal process to make sure that this is resolved and put to bed so we can all move forward.
Okay, in my
And it's been
view,
left up open since 2000.
in my view, it's put to bed. There's no argument here. It's a private road, everyone's got easements, and I don't know who's infringing on your property rights.
Well, you stated earlier, Mr. Swanson, that the original easements for private use, and there's a Supreme Court case that's out there that says the original intent of these easements can have adverse effects for the original intent, and with BLM now coming in, that does have a different effect on the rights of the people.
So how long has BLM owned that property?
2015, they completed a travel plan.
When did they purchase the property?
Can you answer that, Commissioner Obert? Because you were part of following that with the Elkhorn Management Group.
Nope.
Is it more than 5 years, do you think?
I'm sure it is. I have no idea.
I
I'm not gonna warrant to
don't
guess.
recall the exact date.
Okay. I don't
Probably
understand,
not either.
I guess I don't understand how your rights are being infringed. There's a, as I showed you, there is a very clear trail of easements that are pertinent to every property along that road.
And-
If anybody, and the Nagels can complain all they want, but they're the ones that originally granted that easement that the BLM is now enjoying. So, my recommendation is not that the county declare it a county road. My recommendation is private property owners who own that land and enjoy those private easements, take care of your road and get along.
I've been trying to do that.
Okay, well, I don't know why that's our problem.
Well,
That's what I don't understand.
again, if you remember, Mr. Chairman, in May, when we had this meeting, Mr. Lewis was in this room and said, we want the county to take this road over, and if you don't do it, I got some money that I'm gonna file a lawsuit.
And what did I tell him? I said, go out there and get a petition and have every property owner sign it, and then talk to Nagels and find out what they wanna do. Because it's the same thing I told you today. If everyone agrees except for the first property at the head of that road, then we've gotta pay them for eminent domain. And I don't understand why we would need to, when everybody going down that road has a right to go down that road. They need to stop interfering with people going down that road, and everybody can get along. We can make White Horse Road great again, Tim.
Well, good luck. If it doesn't follow the process, then it's gonna
There's no
have problems.
process that's needed. The process is all laid out here. They all recorded their easements.
Well,
I don't know what we're fighting about. I don't know
I'm
what
not
we've been
fighting,
fighting
I'm
about
just
since
trying to make sure we
1999.
follow the right process.
There's no process. It's done. It's in your east.
So
Thank
we
you.
would like to entertain a motion to follow Corey's conclusion to declare White Horse Road a private road.
Private roads privately maintained.
I don't know that we need to make a motion. We have a legal opinion. I think that,
Legal opinion.
yeah, just stands on its own.
So we'll just state it as a private road, let the landowners take care of it. Let's go on to the, Al, are you here for the silos?
I think a couple of us are here, not decided.
Okay.
If you want, I can give you a 1-minute thing on the contracts, and then I can be quiet and everybody else can talk.
Okay.
So there's two contracts. One was a 2006, April 2006, and then the second one is June of 2009, and it's listed as Amendment 1 to the 2006 contract. it pretty much restates the whole contract except for amendments. So I don't see anything in the '09 contract that would require us to have to go back to refer the language from '06, if that makes sense. In the issue of, there's two provisions in here for breach, and all I wanted last week is just a chance to make sure there's not some working, bomb in this thing, and there isn't. The first, I shouldn't say two issues for breach. There's one provision for breach I'll talk about, and the second one is simply whether you renew the contract on an annual basis. So, for breach, and I don't think anyone's talking about breach, but I'll just tell you what's in the contract. That there are certain obligations that the manager does and that the county does. And on page 6 of the 2009 contract, it says, in the event of termination of this agreement due to the manager's default, the county shall be entitled forthwith to the possession of the property that's subject to this agreement and may use force as required to recover the same, etc. So all that's saying is if halfway through the year suddenly the manager said, sorry, nobody can use these slips or something and they're breaching their obligation, the county could immediately take over. That's not what we're talking about here. So now we're back to, or at least I don't think that's what we're talking about here. So now we're back to the term of the agreement, which is paragraph 4 on page 3. No, it's not.
Excuse me, Corey, are you talking about the manager's agreement or the main side of the agreement?
I'm talking about the manager's agreement. Yeah. It's on paragraph 9, page 5. And it says it's for an initial term of 1 year, and then the agreement shall automatically renew itself from year to year unless there's notice in writing at least 90 days before saying you're not going to renew. That term to notify you're not going to automatically renew does not require a breach or anything like that. It's simply your choice, either party's choice to not renew. It also doesn't preclude you from renewing if you decide that when you, in that next 90 days, you bid or whatever, and you may reselect the same manager. All it's saying is, we're not gonna automatically renew, we're going to go through the process of selecting, possibly editing the agreement, et cetera. So, if you wanna do that, you can certainly do that. There's no cause needed, it's an option that's available to you or to the manager every year. So, with that, I'll get out of the way.
So is there any other discussion? I had a short conversation or a call from Steve McCullough. He recommends putting this back to the BOR. One of the things that, there's the plan here that we got for 2018-19 that has the county supplying some work out there. The county seems to me to have a lot of liabilities here. If something was to happen on the lake and all the boat slips were destroyed, and the docks, it's the county's responsibility to replace them. Same with gazebos and stuff. If they had a microburst and got blown away, it's the county's responsibility to replace those. And I talked to Al about possibly having some grant money that's available to the county now, but if it goes back to the BOR, it wouldn't be available to the county. And the other part of that, Steve said that if the county returned that back to the BOR and the trust board wanted to participate in improvements out there, that they would work with the BOR, but then instead of the trust board paying for all the improvements, the BOR would pay for 90% and the trust board would pay for 10%. I don't know that, I don't know what the time frame is for rewriting this contract and getting a new concessionaire in there if that's what we wanna do. Seems to me that we're probably under the gun pretty hard on that. Yes, Al?
Mr. Chairman, a question to start with. You've got two contracts. One is the county to GSG. So I'm a little bit confused as to which one we're talking about, because they're different entities. One is your contract with her, the other was the BOR and your agreement. So which one are we talking about, or are we talking about both of them? Just
Well, I would,
so I know how to frame my mind.
I would think that if we're talking about the long-term contract with the BOR and we're gonna avoid that, then we don't really have anything to do with the concessionaire contract. If we wanna maintain with the contract with BOR, then we have to maintain the concessionaire contract.
Okay.
No. That's not the case, but I just wanna make sure we put some, that information on the table.
So let me, if I can, address the commission.
Go ahead.
I would like to make it perfectly clear that my comments today are personal comments, and I will not go through any more public chastising for making comments in front of the board, commissioners, relative to any group or any place that I sit or I work. I will not tolerate that again. So my comments are personal on my experience and my knowledge and the agreements and the contracts you have, okay? First of all, if you're talking about the long-term agreement, which I think is really what you're talking about today, you made a decision on the manager's contract the other day. So, in my opinion, this is not a very clean nor clear decision. It's not a real, I think as Corey would like to say, here are the facts. Because there's a lot of things that are kind of in the mud on this thing. But I would just say that if you're contemplating a decision to either work with or get out of the agreement with the BOR, I would ask that you have a meeting where the BOR is present and invited in a public format so that you all get a chance between you and the BOR to answer questions from the public collectively. There is nobody here from the BOR today. So I don't know exactly why they aren't here, if they were given adequate notice to be here or not, or invited to be here. But if you choose to cancel, my reading of the agreement is that that you have to pay 2 years of operating expenses for the silos. Or well, that's kind of the way I read it. I didn't find anything in there that said that you can mutually sit down and agree to get out of it. However, I think that's always an option with a partnership relationship, okay? But if you do that, then you have negated the decision you worked on the other day. You will not have the ability to solicit nor pick the concessionaire manager for the silos, because that, if you get out of that agreement, that goes to the BOR just like they did on the other side of the lake, on how you approach it. I may be a little mistaken. I don't know if you sit at the table with them to pick their concessionaires. Okay. So you want to think about that. Because of the request you have local entity coming in asking that they be given an opportunity to bid on the management stuff. You got the current manager here. So if you move forward with getting out of this agreement, then those are done. You don't have to deal with those. That's good and bad. However, there is a section in there that talks about modifying or agreeing to change the current agreement. Now, from my perspective, you might want to think about that. And I say that because if you guys sit down with the BOR, you have the opportunity to negotiate in and out of some of the things that are in that agreement. And it's got a lot of stuff in it, I gotta tell you. But things like, as Mr. McCullough was telling you, well, maybe the wind blows all the gazebos out and the docks out to the lake. Well, maybe you sit down and amend this agreement or renegotiate portions of it that says that the county's not gonna be responsible for catastrophic events that happen out there. I think that's fully within your ability to do that. That's not the way the current agreement reads right now. But I think you guys have a lot of flexibility in negotiating some new terms of this agreement. For example, it talks about planning, construction, development. Those kind of things are not in your budget. You guys don't have the money to do that kind of stuff. You ought to tell them, look, we'll do what we can out here to try and help you with this place, but we can't live with these kinds of terms. So if there's major development, if there's major, just like what's going on right now, if there's planning, site planning for significant improvement in that site out there, it shouldn't be on your shoulders to do that. You don't have the receipts from the campground, and you don't have money in the county budget, and you don't have the professional recreational type staff to be able to do that. But you can, I think, sit at the table with the BOR and say, look, we can't do this, let's take this out, we're interested in keeping the rest. And you can go through your list. Because, exactly as you said, one of the things you have right now is the county is much more able to accept grant money from entities in to do work out there. If it goes to the BOR, it's a government agency, nobody gives them grants, except other government agencies. But nonprofits and stuff do not put money into those facilities when they're run by that. The county has it. There's an ability for the county to be able to take funds that people want to put on that site out there. Whether it's Walleyes, Trout Unlimited, the boating federations, Coast Guard, whoever it is, you have opportunities to do that. Let's see here. There's another, and this is probably a little bit of a side, but on item 9B, page 8 of the long-term agreement, the big contract, says that the funds received from the Silos Recreation Area, from the user fees that are charged out there, are supposed to go to the Broadwater County Trust Board. Now, I don't know if that's how that's been going. I haven't asked them. I won't go there. So it's just, that may be a clarification, because I was reading back through that, and it's like, does that really go to the trust board, or does it go to the county? And do they hold funds for the trust board? I don't know. So I think you ought to think about that from the standpoint of, before you make a decision, you ought to sit down with the BOR. You ought to find out what kind of flexibility and room you have to renegotiate a contract that is much, much better for the county than what you have right now. I mean, it's an okay agreement, but to a large degree, the BOR's in a position of just kind of going, well, it's the county's deal. No, that's not how you do partnership work. That agreement ought to reflect what they will do and what you guys can do, that's reflective of what your actual abilities are. I think there are some advantages to having the county involved in it. I mean, it's a great recreational area. Broadwater Bay has been the most successful recreational entity that's happened probably for the last 10 years in Broadwater County. The opportunity to make that whole site out there that way is before you, if you choose to be a part of it. So I would just encourage you to sit down with the BOR, talk to about the modification, things you can take out, things you could word better. You've got people in this county that have worked in these resource areas a lot, use them, and do that. I would question whether or not you're in a position right now to make a decision other than just get the heck out. And I don't think that's a smart decision on your part. I think you ought to think about it, you ought to talk to the BOR, find out what your opportunities are before you jump in and make a decision one way or the other. And that's it, I'll shut up.
Thanks, Al.
Could I just explain, I didn't realize we were gonna talk about both contracts. So there's two different agreements. There's an agreement that was written in February of 2013 between the county and Bureau of Reclamation, and that has a 10-year term. So that's the one that Mr. Christopherson's referring to, that if the county just decides to get out of it, you have to give 2 year, it either expires at 10 years, or you have to give 2 years written notice before the county would be out of it. And if you don't give 2-year written notice, then you are responsible to pay for 2 years of receipts, as he indicated. That agreement does, however, give the county the option of how you do the concessionaire agreement with third parties. It does say that any agreement you do with a third-party concessionaire, number one, can't go past the 10-year term of this one, and number two, is subject to their approval before you execute it, okay? The document I referenced in my opening remarks is the concessionaire agreement from 2009. That's the one that renews annually on April 1 of every year, unless you give notice that you're not going to renew that. So at this point, I thought that was the conversation and decision that was put on hold last week. They didn't actually make a decision, but the question was whether to give notice that you do not want to automatically renew the concessionaire agreement. That one you can, if you want to decide to do that, you can make that decision. And then, like I said, that does not prevent you from doing an agreement with the same concessionaire, or changing the agreement, or picking somebody new. But that's the one where you have to give 90 days notice. I didn't know, if you want to do the long-term plan of we're going to expect to be a bar, you can certainly do that, but you got to give them notice, and it's going to be a long-term conversation process before that happens. So just be clear about the two different documents that are out there.
Just a little quick update. Last week before the Wednesday meeting when this was discussed last, I did talk to Dan with VOR, trying to get that side of the picture for the people so that we could inform them. And what happened with that meeting that I had with Dan was that he informed me that, as Mr. Swanson points out, the contract is for 10 years. The process to renew the contract with VOR and Broadwater County begins this process in 2021, when it expires in 2023, and that needs to be taken care of at that particular time. There is an avenue to escape that contract if the county so chooses, as Mr. Swanson pointed out, but it's in good neighborly relations to enhance the south end of Canyon Ferry Lake to stay in that contract and move forward. Mr. Dan, I'm trying to remember his last name, he brought forward also that VOR has on the table right now thousands of dollars in a grant that the government did put together for moving forward with some more work on the south end of the Canyon Ferry Lake. Now there's still some questions that need to be answered regarding what was discussed last week, and because we're trying to make sure we get the total story out to the people so that we can build a good program here with support, we would really like to go along with Al and make sure that we get the right people here that are at the table to have the discussion before any decisions are made on. And then we also have Joe and whatever the other guy's name was that was here to ask for an opportunity to be part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey, if we were to redo that, because we voted to not renew that concessionaire's contract, how long would it take you to draw up a new contract to have that in place so that irregardless of whether Sharon's the concessionaire or somebody else is, so that they would be in place by April 1st?
Well, so you'd have to do some kind of a bidding process, I'm assuming, a request for proposals? I don't know. What did we do last time?
Well, if I can add some flavor so that we all know what we're talking about, because I frankly don't think we do. So, in the past, first of all, making a decision for next season is not smart, period. We don't have enough time. So in the past, the management agreement has gone to the person who owns the campground. Now it's the KOA and the store. The reason for that is simplicity. Everybody who goes into that store now, by habit, knows that that's where they take their complaints, their issues. Somebody's in my slip, I need propane, they're stopping to get food, they're stopping for whatever reason. That's where the reservation system is, that's where they can pay with credit card for their gazebo if they've reserved it. that infrastructure is set up at the silo store. So if you have a different concessionaire, be it the county or be it the guys at the Silos Junction, they are going to have some infrastructure that they put in, a building, something at the docks, at the campgrounds, at the gazebos, so that they can re-educate all the recreationists that come to Silos Campground that you can't go to the store anymore with your complaints, you come here. You can go to the store for your chips, your propane, your fishing lures, but your complaints come here. If you want to book a spot, you come here. Here's the new phone number, here's the computer system, here's the credit card system. There is a tremendous amount of infrastructure for that part of it as well. So that's why last week I asked that we wait. We don't have enough time before this season to make all those changes, especially if it's a bid process and we have people come to us and then we go through the time with that. We're only having meetings every other week through the end of the year. Then, come April 1st, Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, April 1st is the date that everybody is told they can call and reserve the gazebos. They're generally reserved in total for the full season on day one. That's your deadline for having all your credit card, your reservation system in place. That's why I'm saying there's simply not enough time. I think it's wise to follow both Al's idea of talking with BOR. They have put money away. We know to the tune of $45,000 so far, plus tables and fire rings that we've been asking for 2 years. And I frankly believe that is because of the group you put together and the public input that you collaborated to get information and feedback on the silos. What do people want to see? We've now got BOR coming to the table willing to work with us. This is a great time to sit down, renegotiate with them, and use this as a positive and powerful way to move forward. We're not going to get them to continue to work with us if they see us as dysfunctional because we're getting rid of a manager who has been doing a great job at the silos for us under very difficult circumstances. First of all, the manager is not in default. Corey, you were not saying that. I get that. I just want to make sure that's 100% clear. There were some unfortunate things said last week that I want to clear the record on. One, none of the contracts that we have had 20% would be taken from the concessionaire or the manager. It's 10%. The auditor is the one that set it up before my time as a enterprise fund. We can look at that, but I think we need to start marrying accounting practices or an enterprise fund with the contracts and make sure they're all on the same page. If that has to be addressed differently than it's currently structured, then let's do it. But let's do it through a process that's constructive for the county and not destructive because somebody has an agenda against something. There is no running deficit with the Silos Recreation Fund, and Steve's letter says the county receives no benefit from being the manager. Your costs always exceed the income. That's not true. And if you look at the budget, right now we're to the good by $7,599 this year. So what we did in the budget is we had the budget due in August, but the season wasn't done until the end of September. What we did is we put money in the fund to avoid a negative for the auditor, not because the fund was in the negative itself. So also it was said that JSJ was loaned money by the commissioner of the county. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Neither Sharon nor JSJ has been loaned any money by the county. The other thing that we don't understand is that the management of the Silos Recreation Area is not just in the summer, it's year-round. There are people who rent the gazebos, they pay for the electricity they use, but our ice fishermen use this lake a tremendous amount. It is one of the most busy ice fishing areas in the state. Canyon Ferry is the most recreated lake in the state. This is an asset to our community. BOR, another thing that I didn't mention with the $45,000 is they pay our law enforcement $86,000 per year to make sure that there's law and order at the BOR campgrounds. So the annual income is roughly 70 grand, give or take, depends on smoke, mosquitoes, what have you. The cost to operate are 35. Mike, I don't know if you've seen that, but there's a full list of everything there. If we got rid of our concessionaire, our manager, these are things the county needs to pick up for 2 years. We're gonna be paying a lot more money than 35 because JSJ has the infrastructure, we don't. We need to sit down with our manager and learn what's done at the silo so we can make an informed decision, and that's gonna take us a little time. There's some changes we can make before April 1st, for sure, but to just go in and kibosh everything and start from scratch, we can't do it. We simply cannot do it. We do have the 2-year cancellation clause with the BOR. There's no question about it. And right now, we've got a partner there. So, a couple of things with the docks. Those docks do not belong to JSJ, they belong to the county. And with those docks, the maintenance is pulling them every day, at least 2 times. The cost for those docks, there was a grant from the trust board of $61,000, but JSJ also personally paid $2,000. They also, JSJ went to the Broadwater Community Foundation and got another $2,000, so it's a community effort. She went to JSJ went to BCDC and got $1,000, and to Walleyes Unlimited and got $2,500. So this isn't just the trust board, it isn't just JSJ, and the money didn't go to JSJ. Those docks belong to the county. It was stated that because the 20% wasn't taken, and that was a commission decision, not one for JSJ, it was our decision, and it lies here. And that was done again because of the auditor and the fact that it's an enterprise fund. JSJ went back to the trust board 4 times after those docks. One was a grant for lighting, and that was approved. One was a grant for surveillance equipment, that wasn't approved. Another was a grant for the rebuild of 2 gazebos, number 1 and 2. That needs to be done, and we need to help with that. That was approved. The other one was an ADA wheelchair lift for folks who need help getting on their boats. That was approved. Those were grants all written by JSJ. Last year, the cost to maintain the docks were $950 by John Palmer. He did the work and then an install of new security system, and that was $1,250. So there's no cash cow. That was used also last week. That's not right. It's absolutely not right. The other thing is because of the reservation system, 10% is taken automatically. So when somebody cancels, when there's unpaid slips, when there's a donation to Richard Tramp, who donated part of the wheelchair lift station and search and rescue, JSJ still pays 10% of that to the county. The gazebos, they brought in last year about $5,670. Same thing with the 10%. Dumpsters, there are 11. Those are owned by JSJ. If the county wants to take over silos, we need to find dumpsters, and a lot of them. Those are emptied 1 time a week each, and there's repairs for them that total about $300 a year. Toilets. We get rid of JSJ, the county gets clean toilets. There's that happens 2 times a day. Toilet paper is replenished to the tune of between 4 to 5 cases per month. Campground host, currently the manager hires the campground host. That's now on us if we get rid of JSJ. So those are just a few things. Also, the campground hosts are not allowed to take nightly money. There is a liability for them to break up fights or drinking, so they are prohibited from that. So there was a lot of stuff said that simply we need to get into the weeds and learn some of the details of what goes on. I would absolutely support renegotiating parts of both contracts, but from within and by working with both partners. I went through this pretty quickly. Do you have any questions on any of it, Mike?
Mr. Chairman, I disagree about this, we don't have the time. And the other thing is, the best thing I would say is, if we just sever this contract, let the BOR, they'll take care of all this here. County doesn't have to be involved with this. Look how much time we've been spending already, and there's gonna be a bunch more time. Let the BOR do it like they do all the other campgrounds. They got the money to make the improvements, things like that, where we don't.
I would agree with that, however, I would also agree that we should sit down with the BOR and renegotiate whatever this contract is, and if we do sever the contract with them, if they are going to enforce the 2-year obligation. And I don't think that we should, for now, I think that we should leave the concessionaire contract where it's at for at least 1 more year, and if we're gonna redo it, then start redoing it at the beginning of the year instead of halfway through the season.
Mr. Chairman, I'd say then let's continue this on our meeting on the 19th. We'll have some time to get some more of this information, and we can make some decisions then.
I'd agree with that.
I'm not going to, and I'll tell you why. We've got people taking time off of work for this. Franklin just said, look at how much time we've wasted on this
Yeah, and I just
already.
saw,
Would you
I'm pretty
please let
sure
me
there's some
finish?
people from the
Would you?
silos were standing out there quite a while ago, and I'm sure it was them that were here before, and they've left, some other people have left.
Mr. Chairman, may I have an opportunity to speak, please?
Yes.
Thank you. We've been through this now 2 weeks. There is nothing we need to do in the next couple of meetings, and we certainly do not need to continue the fighting and the incivility. What we need to do is make an appointment to meet with BOR, to go through an education process, and to do it as soon as January hits, so that we can engage our newest commissioner and work as a team of 3. As far as keeping the concessionaire, that's the smartest thing we can do. And you're right, let's open the contract and start discussing it, but not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is no need to rehash this again on the 19th. None of these facts are gonna change. And we can't make a decision that quickly, so
I disagree, we can, and I'd say let's do it on the 19th. We keep putting off longer, first we'll be into the next year.
yeah.
And now is where we got the time, between now and April.
Al?
And just a thought, the annual contract you have with JSJ right now, if you were to terminate that to either allow for new bidding or just terminate it, and you guys manage it. My recollection of the master agreement is that has to be in compliance with the federal BOR campground standards. I don't know how much time Corey has to review those and put them into a new agreement, but I think it's more than a couple months. And you're gonna have to be out to bid with that, with your evaluation criteria, that you're gonna have to figure out what that's gonna be before the 1st of January, to give yourselves time to let the contractors bid it, pull it together, you do the evaluation, award it before you're into the operating season, which is, if you're dealing with gazebo rentals and stuff, 1st of April. So I tend to think that trying to get out of that for next season is probably something you should not look at. And I think you really gotta give yourself time to get with the BOR and work through the issues. If there are issues of what's costing the county money that can be negotiated out of that, you ought to do that. I think there's a lot of stuff that's potential by you guys keeping that agreement. Again, that's your choice, but the ability, I think, to engage various entities, organizations for funding to do things, local communities, those kind of things, is an advantage to you. Yeah, the Bureau can do it, but once you hand it over to the Bureau, it's a mega agency, and it takes a while. I think, and so for right now, I'll put my group hat on, the Silos Citizens Action Group, and tell you that I think what you're seeing happening with the BOR right now is to somewhat Position we've taken with them all the time is that we want to work with them as a group. And we'll work with whoever's out there as a group to get this place improved and make it a place that people will be proud to go to from not only the county but other places. And that we're finally seeing the BOR starting to respond. I know they've got money on the table right now to do work. They've also got, for the first time since we've been talking to them now in 3 years, they are starting to line up budgetary items down the road. And if you've dealt with federal capital investment things, a lot of them have 10-year windows to get those things done. They are now starting to put those things into place to fit in that window. But the ability for them to be able to go out and talk about partners they have with grants that you guys can help work with, which they can. And the fact that you're the county holding the operating agreement really is an asset to those guys' ability to be able to bring funding to the table. So it's not just what they can do, it's I think there's a lot of power in working with the local county government and citizens.
Thank you, Al.
Still say, Mr. Chairman.
Corey?
I don't disagree with it, and I don't know anything about the silos and all this, so I don't have, whatever you guys wanna do is all work to facilitate it. Two thoughts on this concession agreement that, and one of them that I wasn't aware of until Mr. Christopherson pointed out, is the BLM agree, or the BOR agreement with us says that revenue has to go into the trust. It says income from the concessionaire agreement has to go into the trust account. I don't know if that's been happening or not, because our agreement just specifies county, it doesn't say the trust board. So that would be one question. The second question is on any agreement like this one says that if it goes to court, loser pays attorney's fees. So on any future agreement, I would say we need to change that. It's always a loser for government and a winner for whoever's suing the government. So it needs to be each side pays no matter what happens on the outcome. But other than that, let me know what you want me to do. There's one other aspect of this due to a criminal case. There's possibly, I might, if this were to go forward where we were looking at new concessionaires, et cetera, I might have to recuse myself due to a criminal case. I can tell you more about that privately. There's privacy rights implicated, but just let you know, if it goes to the point where we're rehashing or reopening or whatever, I might be conflicted, but I can tell you more about that privately.
Thank you.
I still say, let's have this on the agenda for the 19th, have BOR here, and we'll get a bunch of this hashed out right then.
Mr. Chairman, it's almost 1. Can we move on to the adjusted journal entries and take care of that, and then the county newsletter?
Yes.
What
So
about
I-
this agenda thing?
I saw you reviewing the adjusted journal entries. I went through them last week. So I will move that.
I thought that was already done, voted on last week.
Is for June, Franklin. These are for July, August, and September. So based on the fact that they appear to be renewed, correct me if I'm wrong, I would move that we approve the adjusted journal entries for July as they are before us.
Is there a second?
And I'll just put it on there.
Motion made and second to approve adjusted journal entries for July, August, and September still remaining.
I thought I'd make the motion separate for clarity.
Okay. All in favor of the adjusted journal for July, aye.
I'll abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the adjusted journal entries for August 2018.
Is there a second? Motion is made and second to approve August journal entries, adjusted journal entries. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. Motion carries. Entertain a motion to approve the adjusted journal entries for September.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made and approved. Is there a second for the September issues? I will second. Motion's been made, second to approve journal entries for September, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same, motion carries. Okay, next is the county newsletter.
So, this is just to, inform you, we do have a committee formed, and we have been doing a county newsletter for a while. It hasn't gone out for a couple, well, probably for a year. And we do have quite a few people who are requesting the county newsletter. And so I am just bringing it forward to, ensure you guys are on board with that. Are you on board with sending the county newsletter? And, one piece of that is the new CT, the, hospital has agreed to help pay for the mailing of the newsletter if they can just have a section on the CT. So it saves us a little bit of money.
I guess we started at one time, it never did work out. We just come up with a bunch of expense, I think it's $700 just for the mailing. Besides that, these courthouse people are taking time from the or courthouse work to write stuff for these articles, stuff like that, so I'm against this newsletter. Just taking money away that wouldn't have to be.
It's a matter of transparency. It's an opportunity for us to share some of the news that's going on that the
I
public
think we're
needs to
getting a
know.
lot of transparency here lately.
I move that we support the sending of the county newsletter here in November.
I'll second the motion. Motion's been made and seconded to restart the county newsletter in November, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same,
No.
motion carries.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just a real quick question. Does the process moving forward to adopt, putting out a new newsletter from the county, does that come out monthly? Did it come out weekly? Did it come out
Comes out monthly.
bi-weekly? And then is there also a cost that's been established to doing this on the county?
It was quarterly.
Started out quarterly, I think we actually put out either 2 or 3. And it just,
So will
It
it be
was
quarterly?
well received when we did it. It was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And all we have to do is pay for mailing. We do the EDDM, I think that's what it's called. And it's really the only way we have of reaching every single box holder. We have a lot of things going on to inform the public about. So I think it's a great way to talk to our folks, and again, it's been well received in the past.
So it comes out quarterly, yeah?
What's our deadline to put something in for submission?
I think the committee's gonna meet on Thursday, so
This coming
they
Thursday?
determine what the subjects will be, and then they'll let department heads know what they're thinking. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, one other thing, this is just a carryover from our closed door last week. I move that we pay the union legal contract from the commissioner's budget and continue to be the lead or negotiators for that issue.
And then, is that a motion?
Mm-hmm.
I'll second the motion to pay the union legal contract. Is there any discussion, Tim?
Question, do you have a cost on this contract?
Not with me, and it is privileged, so I didn't bring it with me. It is protected by client-attorney privilege and is subject to closed door.
Thank you.
But the vote needs to be done in full view of the public.
Can you
Motion made.
clarify, that's the sheriff's office union agreement, not the road one, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the amount of money is not privileged.
I didn't bring the contract because
Okay,
that
that's fine.
is, yeah.
Motion been made and seconded to pay the union legal contract, all in favor?
Discussion, is everything on board on that contract and that payment?
I recuse myself from it. I'm just saying, I just wanna clarify, because we have a road department union one going on
Right.
as well. So I just wanna clarify, if we're talking about the sheriff,
Right, but that's why I say, is everything on board on that, is everything okay
which that.
with the sheriffs?
I recuse myself from it.
I thought it was the road one you're,
No,
oh, okay, That's, okay.
So, motion's been made, second to pay the union legal contract, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed,
No.
motion carries.
And we do not